Normally when I start a presentation, I bring a piece of chocolate for people because I want to underline that we're not in the business of taking chocolate away. We're in the business of making sure we'll have chocolate in the future. But since H1N1 is surrounding us, people have been more reluctant to pass the chocolate on. And so I'm waiting till the flu is over, till I pass out chocolate again. But I passed out such a chocolate in another small country in Europe. It was a ministerial meeting, ministers and their advisors, also trying to tell them that I'm not there to take their chocolate away, but rather that we want to make sure we'll have chocolate in the future. And still at the end, one high-ranking official put up his hand and said, but why should we as a small country worry about resource constraints when there's India and China going through the roof? Why should we worry? And the answer is quite obvious. Because India and China may well go through the roof. I think China is one of the large countries most cognizant about resource constraint, has been thinking about these issues for a long time, taken action, and still may go through the roof with its resource consumption. And in such a world, as a small country, and that small country uses about 3 times more resources than it has within its own boundaries. If you're not ready for that future in such a world where China and India are going through the roof, you'll be toast. So what I told them is, think about yourself, don't think about the world. UAE, think about the UAE. Switzerland, think about Switzerland. Belgium, think about Belgium. Congo, think about Congo. And I think we'd be better off, because I think one of the biggest policy failures that we have today is that we don't truly understand our national interest. So when we are now, for example, look at climate or the resource constraints, we're not facing, I would submit, a moral dilemma. We're facing bad judgments. We're not securing our self-interest as nations and as cities. We are not taking serious the fiduciary responsibility we may have as governments. But that's not seen yet, and I think that's when we link to Copenhagen. I hope we have some time to converse about Copenhagen. That's the tragedy of Copenhagen as well, that we are in the illusion that we think, oh, if we don't agree in Copenhagen, that just means we can go back and cross our arms and do nothing, because I only will do anything if you do something. But that's an illusion, because if Copenhagen will disappoint us, and it may well disappoint us, it will mean that the world will get wilder faster. It means that we as countries and as cities will need to adapt ourselves even more rapidly if we want to stand a chance to be successful and competitive. It's that simple. And still we hear the opposite more often. So that's why I call my presentation Secure and Human Well-Being. That's the top line. And just recognizing we are entering a new era, the area of resource constraints. And so there will be new factors that we have to consider in order to secure our well-being. So what I would like to cover, if possible, tonight is the following, is to say, in a world of resource constraints, if we don't understand how much biocapacity we have and how much we use, we cannot operate effectively. And what do I mean by biocapacity? We start from the premise that the limiting factor is not iron ores, nor is it oil under the ground, but really it is the ability of the biosphere to renew itself, to provide for life. That's what we call biocapacity. The force of the biosphere to regenerate, to provide resources, to absorb waste, and to provide all the other ecological services on which we depend, like stable climate. Now, why not iron ores? Iron ores that are plentiful, they don't disappear even. It's just a question of concentration. Do we have the energy to concentrate the ores or the dispersed iron atoms to bring them back into steel? So it's a question of energy primarily, but energy is primarily a question of, do we have enough biocapacity if you use fossil fuel to cope with the waste? So in the end, it turns back to biocapacity, and so does food. Is there enough biocapacity to provide food and fiber, provide fresh water, etc.? So these are the two key questions. How much biocapacity do we have? How much do we use? That frame the context for deciding what will how we can operate in the future. Second point is I would like to show you a tool that may help you to very much measure that, the footprint. And then perhaps the most important point, why would we do that? We do that because as an organization, we are about 30 people strong now and about 7 years old, but have a number of partner organizations, over 100 around the world. Our core goal is by 2015 to have 10 nations to adopt the footprint like GDP. What does that mean, adopt the footprint? Of course, we want the statistical offices to publish the number of how much biocapacity they have, how much do they use, obviously. But even more so, we want ministers to sweat. We want them to sweat when they see their ecological deficit go up. Because ultimately, it's a similar threat to unemployment going up, or inflation going up, or balance of trade getting out of sync. These are true threats to an economy to operate well. But unless ministers somatically feel the threat, they sweat, they have pearls on their front head and think, oh my God, how can I sleep well? What will happen? How can we steer that into the right direction? It will not come on the agenda swiftly enough and forcefully enough to really turn the trends around.